All right, we're live. Welcome everybody to another DoneJS contributors meeting. This may be one of the last of this format. We'll see. We are planning on changing some things up. With me, as usual, is Matthew. How you doing, Matthew?
Hello, hello. Hi.
And Jennifer, is this your first time in one of these? Nope, second time?
Second time. First time, like, showing something, so woohoo.
Exciting. Welcome, Jennifer. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good. Gearing up for all the snow we're supposed to get this weekend.
I like your shirt. It's like almost inverse of mine. If someone was red-green colorblind, they would have a hard time distinguishing us right now, at least by shirt alone. And Sheriff, where are you coming in from today?
Hi, I'm Sheriff from Algiers in Algeria.
Welcome. All right, so we've got a bunch of demos and other topics to talk about. And since I might have to cut out in 25 minutes, I'm going to go first with mine. And I'm going to steal Chasen's work because he's not here. He's on vacation. And the first thing that I'm going to show, if I can get my screen share to show up, which it is now, is we have this new Toby Community Slack room. With various different communities. We want people to start joining this and having discussions. You'll notice there's things like Angular and React, not just limited to DoneJS and its projects. We're probably going to also add some other things in here around management of software, maybe some DevOps. We'll see how this thing goes and grows, but we're hoping that it can be a hangout for Bitovians, Bitovi's community, and Bitovi's clients to share ideas, discuss things, and get help. So join this if you're on Gitter. We're still going to be using Gitter for a time, but we're hopefully going to be migrating everybody to this eventually. So that's my first thing I wanted to show. The next thing is Toby University. I know Jennifer might go a little bit more into detail about this, but I've been porting our JavaScript and DOM training and eventually debugger training into this. So we've published this before on bitovi.com, but this is better. It does have the same videos and it has improved and cleaned up slides with like actual animations. But the other nice thing about it is it has the exercises are cleaned up and written better. So if this is something that you wanted to use as a training for, this is what we use to train our new hires. If this is something that, if you have new hires, you might find this valuable as well. I think it does a good job of getting people from kind of a beginner to intermediate to advanced JavaScript developer, and also getting them very aware of the DOM. So check this out. You'll see other trainings landing. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about is I've been working towards CAN component docs. These are not published, but a few changes that I've made, I've kind of separated out some of the static and prototype stuff and said, here's what the things you use to define a component. Here's the things you use to create a component. I've deprecated events and helpers and the content element. And we can talk more about this later if the motivation's why. I'll talk about it right now. The events should be replaced by connected callback and listen to. Helpers, really, you can just put those helpers on your view model, so that's just not really needed. And content isn't supported by it's not supported standard anymore. It's compared to slots. And the idea behind component is I wrote up CAN component's purpose as part of this, and I think it helps illustrate why getting rid of content is good. To me, the purpose of component is to make something that's testable and flexible. So there's a lot of different ways you can build these custom elements, but it's also a bridge to web components. You know, ideal future for me is that CAN components are building web components and, you know, slowly morph to look more and more like web components over time. So that's it from me.
I actually have a question about Toby University, if we want to talk about that now. Can you kind of talk about what the goal of publishing all these things in this place is? I mean, is it just like we're going to use it for trainings and other people can take a look at it if they want to, or are there other goals for doing this?
Well, Toby's secret goal is we're going to put up really good training material, and then people are going to hire us for trainings. So that's
not secret anymore.
It's not secret anymore. So yeah, we're going to put up training around. I think I actually might move the to do MVC training from CanJS.com into this. Some other trainings. We'll have an Angular, an RxJS one, CanJS one. I think the good thing that separates our training material out for the most part, eventually I'd like it, them all to work the same way, is that they have tests that verify you're doing the right thing, and I think that actually makes a much better experience. Some of them right now, like RxJS, do not have that, but it does have, every example is code pennable, and you can play with this. I think it makes a really good learning experience, and the solution is always you can always run the solution in your browser. So the ability to run a lot of it in your browser, be able to see that what you did actually passes tests. Especially, let me show here. So here's the final solution. Or I should say complete solution. I don't know if using final solution is a good term. Anyways, you can see that the tests are passing, right? Although I think I have a bug right here. Oh, it's breaking on null being passed. Oh, results in null. Okay, I can fix that. So anyways, I think this is a really nice way of learning. Of course, it does help to have a professional guide your company through these exercises.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question about the deprecations. I just want to get into that real quick. My question, I didn't realize that you deprecated helpers. You said use the Viewmodel. You can't, the Viewmodel doesn't get the options object though, right? So you can't do block style helpers?
It can if you call in the helper syntax.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't use call expressions, and it will get the options. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Use the helper syntax.
Or you can decorate the function somehow, right?
Yeah, you can decorate the function too. I mean, yeah, I'd be curious if people actually have and then, in the worst case, you could always just create your own helper still, global helper, of course, but you can still do that. I mean, if people really do find situations where helpers is absolutely needed, of course, create an issue, and there's room to still undeprecate things. But for the most part, at least in, some of this is based off of actual changes I made in Stash, is, showing people how to call functions. I just show add a function on the Viewmodel and just use that. We don't need two different places for functions to call. I think that's just confusing. All right, and then the final thing, I guess, is just if you are in Chicagoland, I am doing an RxJS training as part of JS Chicago. So you can sign up for that. It's Thursday from 1 o'clock to 5, and we'll be going through building that credit card form and learning all about really RxJS. It just uses Angular for the templates. That's it from me. Who wants to go next?
Do you want me to build on that with the BitU stuff I've been working on?
Sounds like a great transition.
Wahoo. If I can find the screen share button, that'll be step number 1. They always move it on me. I think it's different between public and organization Hangouts. All right, can you all see this?
Yep.
Sweet. And better design is coming. I promise we'll have good readability for you all. But so I have been working on doing a bit of Angular training magic to bring to the ecosystem. And a big part of getting started that is learning TypeScript. And so it's kind of interesting trying to write training that can be good for both, you know, somebody who's a newer JavaScript developer who's maybe not experienced in object-oriented programming, but also maybe somebody who comes from more of a back-end background trying to learn Angular. And I'm from Kansas City. We're a very Angular happy town. I think it's because it's the framework that .NET devs here are least terrified of in JavaScript. So that's kind of what my background is. So working through trying to create a guide that really helps you learn to harness, you know, the power of TypeScript using different tools. Trying to tell people which editor to use is a little scary. So we kind of cover what Visual Studio Code offers, as well as Atom, just kind of showing some basic tools of how it helps to code in TypeScript. But as we move through, we also have some fun CodePen examples. So if you don't want to hop back and forth and copy pasta to your IDE, we've got some examples that you can run and play with in CodePen that I think is going to be a pretty good experience. So you can be able to kind of see examples actually working in the demo. You can see by my examples here, I'm on a bit of a Jurassic Park kick when it comes to code samples. But we can kind of work through and then learn some different examples, be able to play around with them. And then we've got a couple examples or exercises where you've got some code to start working with, and then you'll be able to see the solution if you're not able to get to it on your own. But our goal is, you know, working through this training as a group, hopefully helping guide people and help answer any questions they may have that's not covered by what we have written in the training here. So it'll be really fun to expand on this and see it fleshed out to be a really useful tool for everybody.
What's your favorite and least favorite thing about TypeScript?
Let's see here. I do like the fact that, you know, type checking helps catch a lot of errors, especially with typos, because like there's nothing more frustrating than your code like working perfectly, but you've spelled a variable name wrong or something really, really stupid like that. And so it's nice to have a little additional support. Using the IDE is helpful as well. I'll drag this over really quick because, you know, you're going to get instant linting that's going to let you know, hey, you know, we're expecting this from this interface. You didn't, you know, assign a property that's needed. And especially if you're a developer like new to a project trying to come in, you know, it's probably not well documented because, you know, as developers, we tend to be horrible about doing that. You know, having linting like this and TypeScript support that's going to tell you exactly what you're missing can help you get up to speed running. Least favorite thing? I don't know if I really have a least favorite. Like, I'm a very fallible human being, so any technology that helps make up for my like own human errors, I'm kind of a big fan of.
That's a last part's a non-answer.
Oh, I know.
It was self-deprecating though, so I think it's.
I'll say mine, which is just like when you're doing things like with would necessitate generics, it can just feel a lot of overhead. To if I have a function that takes a function that returns a function, to write out all of the type information for that can be tricky and feel cumbersome.
That's
yeah,
I can do that. You might, if you were starting out in TypeScript, you probably wouldn't design stuff so functionally. You'd probably do it in a more object-oriented way.
Yep, for sure.
I just want to say I've used it for like literally 6 hours total, and I like the fact that it infers a lot of stuff for you, the types, which is really nice because I had a C# background. You had to declare almost everything, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that is kind of an advantage because I know there are companies that are actually still running around on Angular 1 and they're trying to figure out a way to port their code. So it is cool that it offers a little bit of like self-documenting. So if you're starting to port code over, and you can use that type inference to help guide you as far as what stuff should be. So good advantages for refactoring.
Awesome.
Does the why TypeScript section of the docs, I don't know if you showed that already, does that give those kind of examples of the types of errors that TypeScript helps you prevent?
Not necessarily in the why section, but like moving through some of the other sections, like actually starting to use types, we've got a couple errors that you can start to detect and see how that works out, that are more like example based of the different scenarios.
Okay, cool. Because yeah, I think that's always the question I've struggled to answer is like, there's a little more overhead to typing TypeScript, and like I haven't
for sure
seen what it's actually helping with. So
yeah, a friend of mine is like,
when you don't make mistakes. That's gonna happen.
I don't think that's true at all. But yeah, even like working with other people, it's hard to. I don't know. I haven't worked with it a ton either, so maybe that's why. But.
Yeah, and it's nice to like have errors that are gonna, you know, be checked when it's compiled versus at runtime, because that can save you some time. And again, like we make dumb mistakes, like we are not perfect, so it's nice for that. And like theoretically, you could write an app that would absolutely function and not have any JavaScript errors thanks to TypeScript catching that. So theoretically.
Cool. Thanks, Jennifer. Who wants to go next? And then Matthew, I'm gonna go, so kick it off, and then you'll have to go through everybody else.
All right, I can do that. All right, people, I'm gonna talk about incremental rendering, something that I've talked extensively about. But what's wrong with talking about it a little bit more? I started, so incremental rendering, as you probably or know if you are familiar with DoneJS 3, is a new server-side rendering solution, I guess you would say. It's a way to, it's kind of a balance between client-side rendering, which can start booting up your application faster because it's not waiting on anything, and server-side rendering, which, you know, actually does wait on something, and with server-side rendering, when the user does see the page, they see something immediately. They don't have to wait for JavaScript to kick in and all that sort of thing. So incremental rendering kind of strikes a balance between being as fast as possible while also getting started on the server. And this is part of DoneJS, but it's written in a fairly generic way. DoneSSR is somewhat, well, not really anymore, but some of the underlying parts of incremental rendering of DoneJS in particular are somewhat tied to DoneJS, and kind of the way that we have this Steel and CanJS stuff together. So I wanted to create a project that would make this easy to work with for any developer in any framework, because like I said, the underlying stuff is, we have a fake DOM, and it's all very generic, so we're able to support that. So I started this new project, Toby Incremental, and it's going to be primarily a CLI tool, and you just install it, and you can provide a path to an HTML file, or you can actually call to a remote file or a remote address, and it will like act as a proxy for that. So this is the idea of it, to try to make it as simple to get started as possible. So no matter what framework you're using, as I've been testing, like Angular, Vue, and React, they all like build out to a nice little dist folder, and they have their own HTML file and stuff. And so all I have to do is like just do your normal application workflow, and you know, tell incremental what to render, and it will do so. Part of that, I wrote a getting started guide, and this kind of walks you through installing, trying it out. To really see the full effect, it's good to switch to 3G, because when you're running locally, you know, on a desktop computer, it's going to be pretty fast, and you're not going to see a huge difference. But when you drop it down to 3G, you kind of see that you know, it loads much faster.
I was like, can you do a live Lighthouse audit for us?
No, that won't. I don't think Lighthouse. I think Lighthouse. Well, maybe we can try. Lighthouse is more to do with like how fast your application like executes, I believe.
But won't it hit some of those benchmarks for the progressive loading?
Maybe. Let's try.
I think there's like a small section in there, but sorry, didn't mean to derail.
No, that's okay.
I'd be really surprised if Lighthouse picks up on the technique that we're using.
Wait,
really?
I don't know about the technique, but yeah, I don't know. That's the thing.
I guess there's when it's like, oh, is the page loaded by this time? I think it would get that, but like it does also, I think, tell you like, oh, you should be doing, you know, this kind of caching and stuff like that. I'd be very surprised if it picks up.
Yeah,
because it talks about like time to load, time to interactive.
That stuff it would hit, yeah.
Yeah. That stuff you should hit because, well, compare it to like traditional server-side rendering. You have to compare it to that because traditional server-side rendering, it's not going to start even executing your stuff until you've completely server rendered. So we can try it. Why not? But I wanted to show first the thing that's cool about it is that you can just start pulling from a remote URL. So I have this app deployed to GitHub Pages. It's a React application. Just do incremental and gives me an address.
And that's a client-side rendered app?
Yes, this is completely client-side rendered app. And
oh yeah, GitHub Pages.
Yeah, it kind of automatically starts going. Refresh.
And this is there's like no caching currently going on.
No,
right?
it does cache currently, yeah.
Oh, what does it cache?
Well, okay. Yeah, it caches everything forever. it acts as a proxy, and the first time you request like a CSS file or an image or anything like that, it downloads it.
But not XHR.
What's that?
Not XHR though, but like all static things that we consider static, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So if someone had like JavaScript that was dynamic, it would break. But short of that, it should be fine.
If JavaScript, what do you mean by that? If JavaScript.
Well, I've seen people do like request JSON, but that's actually to like a server. You know what I mean? That like inlines some JavaScript.
Yeah, I guess that would break.
Huh?
Yeah, I think so would break. But like a normal API request, it will not be cached. At least I don't think so. I should probably check that. But okay, what was I gonna do? Yeah, so if I reload this, you can kind of see when you're running, like I said, when you're running like from a broadband connection, you can hardly see the difference. You see how it flips. If you see here, this will be the body is invisible at first, and then when the app kicks in, it flips back over to visibility.
Can you make it slower than slow 3G?
This isn't 3G yet.
Yeah,
you can go extremely slow. I don't even know what slow 3G is, but just see the effect here. So we got the page loaded. We've already gotten everything. The instructions have already, inserted everything, and then you get the flip later. Let me try comparing this to like a traditional SSR. I think I have a version of that.
Or how does it compare to just normal client loaded site?
Yeah, I can show you that as well. It's faster than both, I believe. If I remember correctly, the traditional client gets you HTML faster, but it's like blank HTML. But then it finishes later because it has to download the JavaScript and all of that. Okay, let's see what I forgot what
I'm surprised that is it just because the proxy server is having to create DOM and it's like a little bit slower or something? Because I would imagine with a full cache, like if you're just starting to rerun from that same HTML that you had before, you just got to create JS DOM.
Got to create JS DOM. We run everything in a zone. There's like some delay. There's like promises created.
Yeah, there's definitely more you have to do to serve up one of these pages than the static equivalent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like maybe milliseconds difference. It's not a very big difference. Actually, I think I have the data. I just don't remember.
See y'all.
All right. Oh, you leaving? Okay. So like on slow data, on the slowest possible, we get, okay, in this case, the incremental rendering did load like 50 milliseconds quicker. So a load here is like when we get the first HTML. First render is, what is the first render? Okay, this is.
Sorry, the incremental render was 50 milliseconds slower.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. You're right. Wait. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Incremental rendering was 50 milliseconds slower. And like I said, I think that is probably due to like all the work that we do, and we do everything asynchronously still. I mean, maybe that could be improved upon. I'm not really sure. Like I have to look more into like what are the causes of that. Okay, and then first render is like kind of the first time we start displaying an item. So what this does is it streams in products. Run static real quick. Stream in each product one at a time. So that number represents like what's the first time we get a product in. So with a traditional SPA, it's a long time, and that's because you don't get any products until you have to fetch all the JavaScript and CSS before the app actually kicks in and starts fetching stuff. So there's an API request, which is, don't see it, it's for the products. So I kind of just measured like when the first time the product got in, because that's the first time you're going to render something. And so incremental rendering doesn't have to wait on that because it has the incremental rendering instructions that come through. And so those are going to start coming through like immediately. As soon as the HTML is parsed, the browser is going to start fetching that. If it's on H2 connection with push enabled, it'll be there before even then. So that's why there's such a huge difference between these two numbers. And then with SSR, it's actually waiting on the full list to finish. So this API server has like I can't remember, like a 50 millisecond delay for each item. So that kind of, it's number of items times 50 milliseconds is kind of the difference between these two numbers. Yeah, and then interactive is when the app is like finished. Maybe I should call this, well, yeah, it's when the app is like completely rendered. So you see the biggest difference with slow data and slow connection. I think with fast data, the numbers between especially these two are, much smaller. And that's why I said in the Getting Started guide to turn on the slow 3G, because you can see the difference a little bit more. Okay, let's do a little quick test here. I don't usually do live demos. I usually have mine pretty planned out, but let's do it this way. So I have this little traditional SSR. So this just does things in the very traditional React SSR approach. Oops. SSR, I think. So like I said, here we're going to see. Oh no, did I mess something up? Got a bug. I've changed the code around, so it's possible that I broke something. Why is it doing that?
If you're using TypeScript, it might have caught that bug.
Actually, I think I'm depending on a global is probably what it is. You could depend on globals in TypeScript, right? Yeah, so this code needs to be, you have to do like a little dance with, because Node doesn't have XHR, and it doesn't have fetch, and I was using like a fetch, like a, there's a Node module called isomorphic fetch, which it gives you fetch in both the browser and the in Node. However, the browser version messes with incremental rendering. Anyways, I couldn't use that. I didn't fix it. So sorry about that. I can't really show this. Darn it. Would like to. Let's look at static though. We can do the static version. So if we go static, so if you do Lighthouse, does it like go to 3G for you, or do you need to do that yourself?
Yeah, you can select the option.
Okay.
Yep, and then
this.
Yeah, like, and you can uncheck accessibility and SEO because you don't really care about those. Not that it matters. And then sometimes it can get weighed down by your Chrome extension, so I'll normally run it in incognito mode.
Okay.
I get like super bored and like audit my website at night, like while I'm waiting on Destiny matches to load. Like,
all right.
Lighthouse is just like fun gamification.
And it will do mobile. Well, I should probably do desktop because this does not have any mobile design whatsoever. All right. It's doing it in fast 3G. I think that's too fast for me. Okay, performance is 99%. It's going to be tough to beat that. What is the PWA score? What's that about? It's probably... Oh, that's that's
service worker.
Not mobile at all. Yeah, didn't put any consideration to that whatsoever. All right. Just want to make sure the server is primed before I do this.
How much JavaScript is in this app? Do you know?
Give me a second and I'll look. I mean, there's not very much in the app. It's mostly React.
Yeah, that's why you got a 99. You need to add like 4 megabytes of jQuery plugins.
Hey, 100% performance.
And load a font.
Yeah, there you go. Still beat it though.
Yeah, 1%. That's interesting. That tells, because there's a 50 millisecond delay on each item. It must not penalize you because of API speeds at all. Because I would assume that would come into consideration. That makes me really happy though, because I was like, oh gosh, because obviously there's a lot more going on with incremental rendering, but it is tuned for performance, so it makes me happy. All right, I think I've talked enough. Thank you.
That was an awesome demo win.
I know, I like that. That rarely happens, right?
Means my demo's gonna blow up probably.
All right,
Kevin,
next? Or who wants to go?
Yeah, I'll go next. I can go.
Do I have to give you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to show off some new DevTools features as I've been doing for the past few months. So what I've been working on recently is adding Viewmodel mutation breakpoints to DevTools. So now if you open up the CanJS panel, you've got this new dropdown here for Viewmodel mutation breakpoints. So just to start, if you try to add a breakpoint, let's say, my keyboard is turned off. Oh no. Told you, Matthew. You doomed me.
Should have paid tribute to the demo gods.
This isn't even a demo. It's just my keyboard died.
Your keyboard's not working?
No. All right. It's fixed. My keyboard's Bluetooth, so it probably just turned itself off while you were talking. All right. So if you try to add a breakpoint, you'll get this warning that says you have to select a component. But if you do that and then try it again, you'll see you get this this checkbox or this item here. You'll see it adds the name of the view model that you're adding a breakpoint on, so you know you've added it to the correct thing. And then what happens basically is if you mutate your view model or something causes a mutation in your view model, you'll get stopped at this debugger. And you can see in here, you can see the old value and the new value, and we also print out the CanQ's log stack here in the console, so you can see exactly what caused this mutation to happen. So that's super cool. You can also like disable these just like you can normal breakpoints. So if I make another mutation, it doesn't break, you can delete them by clicking on that box. But you can also add breakpoints on more complicated things. So if I want to do like on hobbies.length, you can see we're adding a breakpoint on that. Now if I add a new hobby, we get a new breakpoint. It says, you can see we're breaking, our observation is on this vm.hobbies.length. And you can see the same thing here.
Wait, so
we can actually, sorry, go ahead.
Could you show that code again? So are you like generating code? Is that what you're doing? Is it
so we basically eval this code.
Okay.
Well, we use the DevTools version of eval to run this code that creates this observation, figures out what you want to break on based on the expression that you typed in, and creates this observation around it.
Okay, cool.
And then we run this. It runs it in its eval, which is safer. It's not going to throw errors in your page or anything like that. Cool. And we can actually get even more complex than this. So you can, if I turn this one off, I can do something like hobbies.length plus my counter value is greater than, let's say, 155. You can add that in. And you can see in this expression, it figured out that we want counter on the view model and hobbies.length on the view model. We can see this one breaks now when hobbies.length is 3 and our counter is 153, and that, add those together, greater than 155. Yeah, so that's basically it. You can create breakpoints on changes. So like this is going to break whenever the length property changes, and you can also create like these Boolean breakpoints. So this is a Boolean value, and it's going to change whenever this expression changes from false to true. So yeah, there's definitely a little bit more work we want to do. We want to be able to make it easy to do this through the Viewmodel editor. So you can either like right click on one of these properties, or maybe we show a little arrow here so you can create a breakpoint on properties directly from here. There's also a few little UX issues that we want to fix up, but definitely give this a try. Submit issues if you run into problems, or if you try to create a crazy breakpoint on something and it doesn't work. Definitely try it out and let me know what you think. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Sheriff.
Yes.
Have something to demo?
Yeah, my demo will be a short one,
Okay.
always in the context of enhancing developer experience. Let me share my screen. So we enhanced the warning of missing package in StillJS. So it was when the module is an important module is missing, so the message error will be as you see here, but we cannot know which module or which file is importing this missing module. So instead of this, I have a demo here where I configured just Still. It's a small app. And this index.js is my main file. And in my module, I try to import the define map, which is not, and from CanJS, and CanJS is not in my dependencies list. So as you can see, when I try to run this app, I will have a nice message here that told me which line is in which line we are trying to import the defined map, and we can debug it or we can correct this easily.
Cool.
And I hope it will make the life easier for developers.
Well, I like how you can go directly to where the problem is, but it also gives a suggestion and says maybe you forgot to install this. So
yeah,
I like it.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Do we have topics? I hadn't actually looked at the contributors meeting. Does anyone have any topics to discuss?
How about that Slack logo? Just kidding.
No, let's not go there. Let's keep it Toby. What's next for DevTools, Kevin? Just curious.
I don't know if we're gonna add anything else.
Are you all DevTooled out now?
That's major. There's a lot of little things I want to fix up. The one thing that I mentioned, adding breakpoints to the Viewmodel editor, is a big one. But there's a ton of issues in DevTools. I basically spent all afternoon up issues based on conversations that, based on things that Justin has complained about, basically. So there's a lot of stuff that we could do. One thing that when I first started working on breakpoints, one thing that that Justin wanted me to do initially was be able to create breakpoints on scope variables. So like something that's not on a view model. Let's say you're stopped at a normal breakpoint or a debugger, be able to create a breakpoint on just a variable that's available in your scope. We decided not to do that just because the UI around it would be very confusing. For instance, like if you reload the page, that's going to go away. There's no way for us to recreate those. So I don't know if we'll do that. We've got a ton of other stuff that we could do. But I think for now, it's basically we're going to spend maybe a week to polish up the stuff that's in there, and then update the debugging guide with how to actually use this stuff, and move on and see what people want. Maybe have some people user test or something and see if there's other things we should work on.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna put another DevTools proposal in the next survey, just so you get to work on DevTools just a little more, because I know.
Cool. Working on DevTools has been fun. I mean, it's a very weird, it's a very strange environment. We have, like, the way that you load data is totally different from every other app. You have to, like, eval a script and create a function that has access to the user's page and do all this stuff to load the data from the user's page, and that's kind of crazy. But other than that, I mean, it's very useful things that we've been working on, and cool features. But yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass when you first start.
Cool. All right. Anything else anyone can think of? I wanted to say the Slack. I really like the integrations. I don't know if you probably could do that stuff with Gitter, but I'm not talking about the logo. I'm talking about our new Toby community Slack. I really like how you get, like, the GitHub notifications. I know they can be a little noisy, and some people don't like that. I don't know if there's a way to configure it individually to be like, hey, I don't like the notifications or not. Probably is. But I do like it for the community, because I feel like with Gitter or any other chat, like, there's kind of a disconnect between what the community knows about what's going on. You know, when we release a new feature, they're gonna see the pull request in, and it's like, oh yeah, there's that thing that I've been, like, wondering about, and you don't actually have to. 'Cause some people are actually follow the issues, and that's crazy. So I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely made me think more about my pull requests and releases. It's like adding GIFs and stuff to release notes and things like that, just because everyone's gonna see them. Like, normally release notes, nobody's looking at them, but.
Yeah, I wonder if, like, because I asked a question in one of them in like the CanJS room yesterday, and then there were a couple of notifications, and it kind of buried my question. So I don't know. I guess you could do pinning and stuff like that. There's, like, ways to work around that stuff. I think it's gonna be positive overall. So.
Yeah, like I said, I opened like 20 issues yesterday afternoon, so that probably, and they all had images and GIFs and stuff, so probably buried everyone's conversations.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll call it a week, and we'll see you guys back in 2 weeks, right? For
maybe
another DoneJS, Toby-ish hangout community thing. Yeah. All right. See you all later.